Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, presented as always by our friends over at Exterior Home Solution. They've been local and trusted since 1999. East Tennessee's #1 choice for roofing, siding, windows, garage. You can contact Exterior Home Solutions today by dialing the phone number 865-524-5888 or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. I'm Eric Cain alongside Brent Hubbs and Grant Ramey. We got a lot of questions to get into. We'll start with DolittleVol 5. Do you feel better about the backup quarterback situation heading into this year more so than last year?
I think they're more talented, Grant, because I think George McIntyre's more talented than Gaston Moore. Jake Merklinger's, I don't think his talent's drastically changed from last year to this year. His knowledge of the offense should be better. Moore had more knowledge of the offense, but didn't have the talent that McIntyre has. So from a talent standpoint, yes. An experience standpoint, no. How's that for a cop-out answer to get things started?
Well, I mean, my answer is in general no, because I've never felt good about any really backup quarterback situation, especially when you have a guy like Nico who's considered your franchise quarterback. I mean, it doesn't really matter who you have behind him. You'd rather have your starter in that. Like, I don't know. I would rather have Gaston probably just from the experience factor, just because he's going to come in and steer the ship the right way and probably avoid disasters, which he also threw off his back foot deep to Alabama and was immediately intercepted. So maybe that's out the door too. So I think Jake Merklinger is fine, but I still don't feel great about a backup quarterback situation because when your starter's hurt, not in the game, you're never feeling good in those situations.
Hey, Joey Halsey just said let it rip, all right? And Gaston Moore
He let it rip from his back foot rolling right.
There's a practice let it rip and a game let it rip. I think those are two different things. I'm not sure Gaston quite grasped that. I think in college football, to your point, Grant, and Eric, you jump in here too, I think it's much harder to have a backup quarterback that you feel really good about. But because those guys just don't play enough, right? And if a guy's good enough to play, he doesn't want to sit and be the backup. He goes in the portal. He doesn't hang around. I mean, like the whole Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton thing just doesn't happen very often in college football. And look, I mean, Milton, he had played and he could execute it, but like Georgia took a step back. Agreed? With the injury to Carson Beck, I mean, they weren't the same team. I mean, maybe Texas because of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, but I think those are more outliers than that's the norm in terms of college football backup quarterback situations. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I feel like.
No, I would agree with that for sure. Because, I mean, who wants to sit here and wait your turn, or who wants to sit here if you get benched? You want to go look for another opportunity for sure. I mean, the fact that Joe Milton stayed for 2022 was a surprise at the time. Of course, he got his opportunity again in 2023. But yeah, you just don't see that often. Brandon_SV, with there being an unlimited amount of field coaches, how does football support staff stack up to other top schools in the country? I think Florida has more coaches than players.
They got a lot of bodies, Grant. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I mean, I really don't know how Tennessee's numbers compare to other schools' numbers. I don't feel like Tennessee's at some great deficit, that they're way behind somebody else's support staff numbers. I think that they've got plenty of coaching bodies. I mean, every position coach has got a assistant coach below them, essentially. There's an assistant O-line coach. There's an assistant running backs coach. I mean,
there's an assistant to the linebackers coach.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has that position. So what Tennessee doesn't have is a general manager, and apparently everybody in college football is going to have one of those.
There's bidding wars for them.
Yeah, but sooner rather than later. So regardless of what my opinions may or may not be on those, it appears like everybody's going to have a general manager because, well, everybody has a general manager.
So I'll tell you what. Nate Oates came to Knoxville one time with Alabama, maybe his first trip. I can't remember, but we looked down at the national anthem, and there was 15, 16 basketball players lined up for the national anthem, and it felt like there was 35 guys in quarter zip pullovers, and it was his, X number of assistant staffs he has, X number of assistant coaches he has on his staff, and then it felt like an army of analysts and graduate assistants and whatever. And it feels like ever since then, every staff in the country, basketball, football, you name it, has grown exponentially.
Shouldn't schools prioritize these general manager positions for football before basketball? Like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but let's just basic math here. Carl Ravitch can't do it, but there's over 100 football players. there's not that many basketball players. There's more going on in football. So why do we see a lot of these universities prioritizing general managers for basketball and not football, I guess is my question.
I would be begging for one as a head coach. I mean, I would want – I know they're control freaks and they want their fingerprints on everything and every decision goes through them and all that stuff, but I would want as much help as possible trying to juggle all these different balls that are in the air at the same time. I couldn't have one quickly enough.
Zjsvols wants some predictions here for football, basketball, baseball. Basketball, SEC standings, SEC tournaments, March. Give me a bold prediction somewhere in that area, Grant.
Alabama and Auburn aren't done losing games. That's an easy one because they play each other twice, and they both have really tough closes to the schedule here over the next 7-8 games, however many games are left at this point. SEC tournament is going to be an absolute war. I have no idea. Somebody could come out of nowhere and win it, or the Auburns or the Alabamas of the world could win it. And then in March, I think the SEC is going to have 3 number 1 seeds and a couple number 2 seeds, which is insane. I think they're going to set a record for number of teams from a conference in the NCAA tournament, which is right now, I think, projected to be 13. It could be 14 if Arkansas keeps playing better down the stretch than they did early on. That's what kind of league it is. It's insane, man.
Baseball, bold prediction for leader in home runs, Andrew Fisher. RBI, let's go. I'll come back to that. Batting average, Gavin Keelan. Strikeouts, Andrew Fisher. RBI, let's go somebody like, let's give it to Reese Chapman. This is his year. Reese Chapman. He's going to drive in a lot of runs, hitting 6-7, somewhere around in that order right there.
Do you think he meant hitter with the most strikeouts or pitcher with the most strikeouts?
Probably pitcher. I took it as hitter since we were talking, hitting stuff
Just
there.
Curious.
Strikeouts for pitchers will be Liam Doyle.
There you go.
Strikeouts for hitters. I'll double down on Andrew Fisher. Football, anything. Give me a bold prediction for football, Brent.
They're going to practice spring ball here in less than a month.
That's not bold.
I think Josh Heupel is going to hire. I think he's going to promote Chop to be his outside linebackers coach, and I think he's going to hire a special teams guy who has a proven track record of special teams. I don't think he's just going to promote at that position.
A couple more here from the poster. Dubar minutes are so sporadic. Does he go rogue, bad matchups, or others just give more effort? It's probably all the above. I don't know why I asked this, but I'm just curious.
All of the above might be correct. I think just a lack of consistency, lack of trust from Rick Barnes. This time of year, he plays guys he trusts, and if he doesn't know what he's going to get from you, your minutes are going to be very few and far between, and you better take advantage. And we just haven't seen, like, D-Stone can be the guy that he was in the second half at Texas, where he sparks a comeback as he wins a game, or he can be a guy where he's -9 in 3 minutes at Kentucky, which seems hard to do Tuesday night. So he's got to be somewhere in between that and much more consistent if he wants more consistent minutes.
Grant, do you feel like he tries to do too much as soon as he gets in a game instead of getting into a flow of the game? Like, he's like, well, I'm going to get 2 minutes here, so I better go. I mean, it seems like he gets a shot as soon as he gets on the floor. Like,
right.
it doesn't seem like he's ever working to try to get in the flow of the game, because I guess he feels like his rotation may be really, really quick. So it just seems like he's super aggressive when he gets on the floor.
Yeah, that's probably part of the problem. He can shoot it. It's got to be within the flow of the offense. It's got to be looks they want. It's got to be stuff they want to do. It can't be stuff that's forced. And if it's forced, it's a problem. So, and I would think so, because when your minutes are so limited, you're thinking, how many shots am I going to get? I better take advantage if I'm going to be on the floor for this amount of time. So, I'd say rushing or being a little overly aggressive is part of the problem. And just, I don't know. It's just so hard to get in the flow when you're so inconsistently on the floor. You don't know what kind of minutes you're going to get, if you get any minutes at all. So I think it's part of the problem where he's just not in the flow. Tennessee needs him to play better, but it's just hard to envision that happening anytime soon.
Last one here, worst/best Super Bowl halftime shows. What a topic here this week, right?
Prince in the Rain.
I was going to say that's the easy one right there.
That seems
right?
to be the standard, right?
Yeah, that was great unless you're a Bears fan, and that's a Bears Super Bowl where you were having a mental meltdown after everything that happened with Devin Hester taking the open kickback. But I would say Prince in the Rain. My hot take on the halftime Super Bowl is, if you like Kendrick Lamar, you like that halftime Super Bowl. If you don't like Kendrick Lamar, you hated that halftime Super Bowl. Like, that's just what it is.
My hot take is that we make way too much out of the
I
halftime
agree,
Super Bowl
too.
show. That's
Yeah.
my hot take. But
Yeah.
but again, I'm not the most cultured individual on the planet, so my hot take probably is not very worthy of anybody in the pop culture world who likes that kind of stuff. I didn't watch it. Like I just like, oh guys, I'm not interested. I'm
Just
moving
give us 20 minutes of Mr. Darlin on the jug.
There you go. That's right.
Zjsvols 865. Who do you predict is our top 3 locker room leaders on the team by season start / season end? Nico better be one of those. Bryson Easton's going to be one of those. You're losing a lot of leadership, guys. I mean, who are some other names? I mean, Miles Kutzman comes to mind, but like I feel like that's a role that he continues to try to ascend to because it's not natural for him. Maybe I'm wrong, to be the outspoken leader type guy.
One of the linebackers, Jermon McCoy, guys like that. Those were the first ones that came to mind when I thought about this question.
Yeah, the 3 you mentioned were the 3 that I had off the top of my head. I mean, I think Arian Carter at linebacker, maybe as a leader there. But I think Bryson Easton's got to take a step. I don't know that that's his – I think he likes to talk, but I don't know that that's his greatest gift or the most comfortable place that he is at. I think Kitzelman has been growing in that role. But the bottom line is if Tennessee's offense is going to grow, Tennessee's quarterback, Nico, has to be – I think more assertive, a little more, and a little more of a dominant role as a leader, and not just kind of pull guys off to the side every now and then and have a conversation about something you saw. I think he's got to be more assertive in that role as a leader.
Bigun asks, any chance that Tourney schedules a harder midweek game or two this season? Not this season. I know teams like Florida playing Miami, FSU multiple times during the midweek, Georgia plays Clemson, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, so on and so forth. I understand the need for some games against Western Carolina, so on. Proximity like Louisville, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech would make sense. Also, is college baseball to a point, specifically in the SEC, where you could see an ESPN Gameday future in various sites? I'll answer that one first. I would say no. It's not been done before. I understand the game continues to grow in popularity, but I would just say no from a logistics standpoint and from a monetary standpoint. In terms of the midweek schedule, I mean, there's a couple on there, right? Last year, Tennessee played Xavier. This year, Tennessee plays a regional team in Northern Kentucky, right? But overall, no. I mean, over the history of Tourney being here at Tennessee, it's kind of been some cake games here at the beginning. You go somewhere to get some real competition, whether it's to begin the season or like this year, it's in weekend 3. Go get real competition, and then you get ready for SEC play. And I know it's annoying and frustrating at points and times, but Tennessee's won a whole lot of ball games. You're coming off a national championship, so I'm not gonna doubt the way he does the schedule. I would say no, but to your point, Cincinnati would be doable. Georgia Tech would be doable. Those type of teams I think could work for a midweek, but I'll believe it when I see it.
I don't think he has to because of the strength of the SEC.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to. Certainly.
I mean, and I think he probably feels like it's better for him to throw, if he can get some coaches to agree not to play short and 7-inning games, to throw a bunch of arms in the preseason and figure out what you have, as opposed to playing some of those early weekend series type games where you don't get to play as many people. I mean, how many different lineups is he going to play over the course of the next month?
A ton.
I mean, the guy's lineup card starting in the 3rd inning through the 9th inning is going to look like you're marking off your grocery list as you walk through the aisles. I mean, it's going to have more scratch outs and add-ons than ever, because he's always tinkering so that he has the best feel he can have for what works for his team once you get into conference play. That's the direction he takes it, and he feels like that. I think he feels like that's the most beneficial to having his team ready for SEC play.
Yeah, I would agree. And not only, in-game adjustments in these blowouts, I think you're going to see a number of different starting lineups in terms of not just lineup order, but, Cannon Peebles, we'll see how much he catches this weekend. If he doesn't catch, Stone Lawless, I could see Dalton Bargo back there. Dalton Bargo's been catching a lot here lately. Andrew Fisher, going to play this weekend. Will he play third base? I haven't seen him play third base since fall, so I'm not to say that he can't, but I can see him playing first base this weekend. So on and so forth. Manny Marin, Ariel, and Tico are going to get spot starts. So a lot of tinkering, a lot of moving around, and that's what this portion of the slate is for, to your point, before you get to SEC play when it gets really, really tough.
It also feels like some of these teams he mentioned, the proximity is a little bit he mentioned proximity for Tennessee as well, but Florida, Miami, FSU, that's a little bit different than the proximity for Tennessee or Georgia, Georgia Tech. Like if Tennessee and Vanderbilt weren't in the SEC, don't you think they'd be playing midweek games in baseball because of what they're trying to accomplish and the rivalry there? Like those are some out of conference rivalries, so it would make more sense for those to be played midweek based on that and the proximity.
Let's go to UT Champions. How can the world's biggest game, the Super Bowl, not either take place on a Saturday or have it as a Monday holiday? That has to be a thing. Now that we agree that it needs to be on the weekend, think how dumb it is for college football to have their national championship on a Monday. Super Bowl Sunday is just what it is. I can't stand that the national championship for football is on a Monday. I hate it, to the poster's point. What do y'all think?
Well, Super Bowl Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. It can't be Super Bowl Saturday. That's blasphemous. I think they will get the schedule corrected to where it lines up with what's the next President's Day weekend, whatever the Monday off coming up. I think they will extend the schedule or fix it to where that happens. But I agree with the Monday night, and especially now when the schedule's a little bit more. It's drug out by the college football playoff, and it's extended longer into January. Like you got to find a way. I know you're competing with NFL playoffs and all that stuff to get it on a Saturday night or something where it can get more attention and more hype leading into it, because Monday night it doesn't feel like it's doing it anymore.
And not only that, Brent, but when you start that game at 8:30, I mean, we're not getting done till after midnight. Like, come on now. Like, the Super Bowl starting at 6:30 was awesome. It's like get in, get out, go to bed.
Yeah, I mean, I think college football is going to fix itself. Because I think what the ultimate goal for college football is going to be, the Super Bowl is always going to be played in February. It's not going to go back to January because of TV ratings. And you're going to always have that week off. So you're going to play your college football national championship on the week off between the NFL conference championship games and the Super Bowl. And when you do that, then you can play on Saturday because there's no NFL to compete. If I'm laying out football, that's what I'm doing. Is we're going conference championship games in the NFL on a Sunday, and then the next week is the national championship game on Saturday, and then the next week is the Super Bowl. To me, that makes a lot of sense and easy to do, because I think the national championship game is going to be on an open weekend in the NFL season, which would be the week before the Super Bowl. From a TV standpoint, that makes the most sense to me. Now, nobody accused me of being Rupert Murdoch anytime soon, but from a programming standpoint, that's how I would want to program it if I was in charge of those two sports.
Eric, I got bad news if you need sleep, because, buddy, your sleeping days are over. Like,
yeah, you're done.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
I was texting one of my buddies earlier before we recorded, and he's like, "Yeah, I texted him last night. It was like midnight." He's like, "Sorry, I saw this text at 5 a.m." and I'm like, "Oh my god." Yep. Only a couple more weeks left of normal sleep, and it's back to that radio schedule, sleep, I think. So.
Depends on what your shift is.
Then you are tired. You're just tired for the rest of your life. Like, that's it. Like, there's no more being energized. It's just different levels of tired and different levels of caffeine.
But I hear it's all a blessing, right? Can you confirm?
It's a blessing.
Okay.
I can confirm.
Good.
It is a blessing. There are going to be days where you're going to be like, I give anything if I just had no responsibility. If I could avoid responsibility, I would be the happiest camper in the world. There'll be some days like that, right, Grant?
One of my buddies on Sunday was telling me about how he did not sleep a wink the night before because of his baby daughter, and I said, you know what? You hate it now, I would trade you in a second.
That's right.
I would trade you in a second.
There are going to be some days where I show up to football and Austin's going to be saying something. I'm going to be like, I'm just going to need 5 guys. I'm going to walk away.
Come back. That happens pre-kid, no kid, whatever. That's a given anyway, right?
100%. All right. Dhale says, Ethan Davis mentioned in AP's interview on the Ball Club Confidential that Edwin Spillman looked massive or huge. Is it that he needs to move defensive end, or just for linebacker that he looks big? I think he was just saying that, hey, he's put on some weight, he's attacked the offseason, he looks like an SEC defender, right?
Yeah, he's not moving to defensive end. Linebacker.
Wasn't this a talking point in the fall going into the season, like how big he was, how much bigger he had gotten since he arrived at Tennessee? So yeah. I don't know how much that changes things.
Yeah. I mean, again, linebacker all the way, just going to be quality size linebacker who can run. I mean, he's not going to be a safety body playing linebacker.
How were the other linebackers looking? They looked athletic, but at times out of place in the throw game. Are the incoming freshmen going to help at all? More than the incoming freshmen, I'm intrigued, Brent, about the spring for Jordan Burns. Feels like they liked him. He was hurt, missed a whole lot of time. Could he have been in the rotation last year? I don't know, but with a good spring, I think he can be a guy that helps Tennessee next fall. And Jordan Burns is a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, I think Burns is a guy for this spring. Burns and Spillman are probably the two guys I'll be focused in on the most. And that's not a knock on any of the young guys who have come in. And we know Tennessee likes to rotate, and they've played young guys. But for me, for this linebacker group to take a quote step forward, be better in coverage and some of those things, I think it's what does Spillman and Burns look like, and how much have they progressed under William Inge from a mental standpoint. T-Lander's T-Lander. I think he's a good player. I think he's got some limitations. Arian Carter's going to miss, the bulk, if not all of spring. So it's going to be real opportunities for Burns and Spillman. I want to see what those two guys look like.
And I mean, the nature of linebacker, you're sure you got to be able to do both, but your limitations as a linebacker is going to be out of the box and pass coverage. That's just nature of the position. You got to continue to work and get better at that, but there's a reason you're not playing defensive back. I think Arian Carter's such a good player. If you can just get him to stop over pursuing and kind of taking himself out of some plays, and that comes with experience and the more he plays.
Well, I'm surprised, and I guess it's just a physicality standpoint, Grant, but given some of the underneath stuff that you see in college football, I'm a little surprised that the defensive side of the ball hasn't morphed back into a little bit more of 6 defensive back coverage. When you're basing out of 5, get another linebacker off the field and play 6 DBs. And maybe you just feel like you're going to get run on if you do that. But it feels like for that open space stuff, in a lot of cases, unless you've just got an elite linebacker group, you really need an extra speed body out there. I'm a little bit surprised defenses aren't tinkering more with 6 defensive back packages than what we've seen.
Yeah, probably a little bit of a personnel dilemma, kind of trying to pick your poison on which way you want to, I don't know, not get exposed, but struggle where your vulnerabilities are. Like whatever you feel better about your depth-wise in terms of the number of linebackers you have versus the number of quality defensive backs that you have and you can put on the field. And maybe that's something they look to, not just Tennessee, but any program across the country change as the sport, the game, the schemes continue to evolve.
Forever faithful, do you see a future where Hendon Hooker finally starts? Also, what has to happen for DK? I would assume he's talking about Dalton Knecht to start in the NBA. Certainly doesn't feel like Hendon Hooker has any momentum going right now, which stinks. I won't say never, but I would say the momentum is not in a good spot there with the Lions signing Bridgewater and so on and so forth. DK dilemma. I mean, what a last 7-8 days for Dalton Knecht. I mean, is he back to wearing Lakers gear? He was in sweats the other night, Grant.
He was in sweats and looking none too pleased on the Laker bench, and he told J.J. Redick, I think, or at least I saw this, I hope it's correct, that he kind of needed a little bit of time to process all the stuff that had happened before he gets back on the court. I don't know. It's just a bad scenario, bad situation. I mean, you're a first-round pick, you're a rookie, and to get traded is bad enough, and then for that trade to get rescinded, which really never happens, days after the trade deadline, after this thing had gone through and all this stuff, both teams had announced deals and all that. And now I think I can't remember, the Lakers or Hornets or somebody's still trying to fight some part of that trade. It's just, I don't know. I think both players mentioned Hendon Hooker and DK need a change of scenery because Hendon, I don't know where Jared Goff's going in Detroit. They got a good thing going there. I don't see anything changing there anytime soon. There's a lot of teams in the National Football League that need quarterback depth. So maybe he could find somewhere where he could actually get some time on the field and not just be that backup, the clipboard guy. And for DK, the same thing. Like maybe it works in LA, but also it's kind of hard to imagine there's not some awkwardness, bitterness. It's just a weird setting where it feels like if they could get him a fresh start, it would be best for all parties involved.
Sam Smith, 2233. Cain, the Fighting Darlinstone Dubars come to Knoxville this weekend, that being Hofstra. What are your thoughts on Marcus Phillips getting the start for Game 2, and who is your projection to get the ball on Sunday? I knew it was coming before Tourney announced it on Tuesday, but heading into the last weekend here, I mean, I was surprised, right? I mean, Marcus Phillips is a guy, if you follow Tennessee baseball, he's got all the potential in the world. He's got a great velo on his fastball. Changeup's pretty good. He's working on that 3-4 pitch mix. they always knew that he had starter capabilities, but his command has just never been there. And that's why they didn't utilize him more last year, because didn't trust him to put him out there, except for a couple of times. SEC tournament comes to mind. I think Kentucky series comes to mind. Anyway, but his last 2 appearances in preseason, he was really, really good. Pitched 4 to 5 innings, walks were down. Velo was consistent. Command was there. So if Frank Anderson believes that he can do it and trusts him enough to put him out there at least for a weekend, then who am I to judge? I'm curious to see what it looks like. In the pizza series, they followed Phillips with Snead. I hate that look. I don't think that's going to be the look they do in the season. Your next question, what do we learn about this team outside of Oklahoma State, Arizona? Can Sanford push this team to be, what can we learn about this team? I'm going to watch Nate Snead opening weekend. If he's not down there in the bullpen on Friday and Saturday, then I would think that Nate Snead could potentially start on Sunday. Brandon Arvidsson, Dylan Loy. I don't know about Sunday right now, to be completely honest. I was surprised about Phillips getting the Game 2 start. I'm intrigued to see who they piggyback him with. But overall, I think, if he's on, that's a great 1-2 punch to begin your weekend, and with Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips. James_Go Vols, how soon before Coach Caldwell wins a national championship? Brent Hubbs.
Well, I think that, we'll see. She's got to continue to grow in her program. Everybody's going to spend the offseason figuring out how to defend them and how to attack them. Where does her press has not yielded the volume of live ball turnovers and points off turnovers the last 3 or 4 games that you would like. But there's nothing about Kim Caldwell coming out of year 1 that doesn't give you great excitement about where they're going in the future. There's nothing to say her style doesn't work at this level. There's nothing to say that they're not going to be talented when you look at the recruiting class that she has coming in. And I think they're only going to be better in year 2 in terms of how they evolve. I think offensively you're seeing them get better. Defensively they're adjusting into the half court to defend a little better. They just got to get a little more yield, I think, out of their press and their pressure against high quality teams. I think they're going to get that yield down the stretch here when you look at who's on their schedule. They're just not getting as much out of that as you would like against the LSUs in the South Carolinas and some of those teams. So love where she's at, love where it's going. I think if you're a fan, you're really excited to see what year 2 looks like of this, but you're not casting off year 1 as just being done and, hey, it's been kind of fun to watch. They can still make noise here. It's going to be fun to see what they do down the stretch.
Just the fact that question is being asked and it's not in jest tells you what you need to know about Kim Caldwell year 1. And I do think there's going to be some chess matches in the future with how, like you're talking about, teams defend them differently or play against them differently based on what they've seen in year 1. But Kim's move is going to be the level at which she's recruiting, which is elite. Like, she's going to have a lot more talent if she keeps recruiting at this elite level and does so consistently. I'm interested to see what March looks like, what seed they end up with, how far they go, all that stuff. It's one thing to have a pulse in the program again and have some excitement and win games and beat UConn and all that stuff and recruit at the level she does. But man, it's another thing to catch a South Carolina or an LSU or whoever, because those teams have been doing it for so long.
Alexis Hornbuckle joined Josh and Swain last week, and it was a really good interview. And one of them asked her, like, towards the end of it, like, hey, would you have liked playing in this system with the math subs at times, line changes? And she paused and she was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. As a competitor, I want to be out there all the time. So like, I would not like that. That would take a lot of adjusting. But then she was like, but at the end of the day, I want to win more than anything. And so I would have bought into it. And you see these players who are here now buying into it. And you mentioned recruiting. You can get recruits, McDonald's All-Americans and stuff to buy into the system, to this culture, to the way she's doing things. Man, I think the sky's the limit for sure. Let's get one more before we hit a reset. Mr. Mrrockytoptowdy, any Alberto Osuna updates in the last 24 hours? No, nothing in the last 24 hours. Tony Vitello said on Tuesday, essentially they're just waiting, for eligibility word. The NCAA, when it's in their hands, your guess is as good as mine. Okay, it's up to the NCAA, and so unless something transpires here in the last couple hours leading up to opening day, I don't expect him to be eligible and playing for Tennessee this weekend. We'll reassess, moving forward next week, but it's up to the NCAA. Nothing's changed as of right now. So kind of like with Andre Kirick offensive line discussion, like until you're there, you just have to prepare and assume that you're not and kind of move on. And Tennessee certainly will do that. Still a lot of expectation that, of course, he's going to be out there eventually, but doesn't look like it's going to be here for opening weekend unless something transpires here in the 11th hour. All right, plenty more questions to get into, but first let's get a word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
Exterior Home Solutions, that phone number for a free estimate, 865-524-5888, or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. I'm Imissdenariusmoore. Recruiting pipeline question: has the nature of NIL deals and mega conferences diminished the importance of recruiting pipelines, particularly for the big name blue chip guys, or do those local connections still make a big difference?
I think every scenario is different, right? I mean, Tennessee's involved in David Jacobs Jr., who's a defensive end from down in Georgia. Rodney Garner recruited his dad, coached his dad at Georgia. There's a pipeline you think that will help you. Now, could NIL be a deciding factor in that? Sure, absolutely it is. I think we're kidding ourselves if we try to mask the NIL part of the recruiting discussion. I mean, I just think we're at the point now where everybody has to understand, like, we may not know the exact number of deals, but, the idea that it's about, it's always just about culture and it's about fit. And I mean, the NIL factor is, when you talk about the pluses and minuses list that kids go through, it's at the top of that list. And that's just the reality of it. Does Florida still have an opportunity to go to, St. Francis in Maryland, where they've recruited for years? Can they still go in there and be effective and be in the game right out of the gate because they're Florida, because of the pipeline they've had to that school? Yeah, I mean, I think that gets you in the door. I don't think it locks anybody up as easily as it maybe did in the past because of the NIL factor.
I think you always default to connections and relationships in anything, not just recruiting, but especially in recruiting, because it's not just cutting a check. Like, cutting a check's a big deal, but everybody's cutting checks. Like, you better have a little bit something there. Like, you're always going to fall back on that. Like, nobody cuts a check like Brent Hubbs, but I got a relationship with Brent Hubbs, right? So we're good.
Yeah. If the numbers are even, it becomes all about relationships. Or if the numbers are close. Now, if one is, substantially bigger than the other, then obviously the money factor totally comes into play. But if the money is equal, it's the same thing with a job. If you've got two job opportunities in front of you and you like location of the job, or you like the workplace environment at job A better than job B, you're probably going to take job A if the money is equal. You may take job B if job B's $50,000 more than job A, right? But if it's equal, then it all comes back to relationships and all of the other variables that have been in play in recruiting for years.
Nashville 615, in your opinion, of these items, what's most important for Nico to reach his ceiling in 2025? Seeing the field better, deep ball accuracy, strategic usage of his legs. Grant, how would you answer that?
I mean, you can always process faster. You can always see the field better. Like, there's no cap on that. Like, you can always be improving there. It doesn't matter if you're a first-time starter or a fifth-year senior who started every game of your career. Like, you can always be better there. Deep ball accuracy, I know it's frustrating at times this past season. I'm still not all that concerned about his arm. Like, I think he's got plenty of arm talent. I think he'll be fine. Like, I got confidence in deep ball accuracy and the way he throws the ball. Strategically using his legs, I was fine with how he used his legs against Ohio State. I was fine with how he used his legs against Alabama. Like, in some big games, I don't really see a huge problem there. Like, protect yourself, but I don't have a huge problem. Like, I don't feel like he's not running when he should be running.
See, I think it's in that order, Brent, because to Grant's point, you can always improve processing, seeing the field better. You get, the more you play, that should get better. So I think that should be number one. Number two, deep ball accuracy. I mean, the numbers were not good. The numbers were not good for Joe Milton either. Of course, you compare those to Hendon Hooker, where they were fantastic. But football's so much more than throwing it 20 yards down the field. It's a part of it, but it's so much more. So that's why that's two. But they do need to improve because those big plays, splash plays, were not there. And that's been a huge part of what this offense was the first couple of years in the system. Number three for me would be strategically using his legs because, again, like Grant said, I was fine with the way he used his legs. I think Tennessee should allow him to, use them more, call some more designed runs at times. But I thought he did a good job of escaping, extending, and making things happen on the run for him this year. So I'd go in that order, Brent.
Well, but what's your definition of ceiling? I mean, he won. I mean, he led a team and they won 10 games and went to the playoffs. if your definition of ceiling is more touchdown passes and more yards passing, then deep ball accuracy is number one, because that's the one where it translates the most, right? If he'd hit five more deep balls, he'd had 5 more touchdowns and 300 more yards. So what's your definition of ceiling is kind of where it's at. If it's just the raw numbers and better stats, then he better throw the deep ball better. It better be more accurate for that, if that's what you're talking about from a ceiling standpoint. But I mean, he can get better and needs to get better at all 3 of those things. And I think you can make that case for most guys out there.
And a reminder, just like Nico missed on a couple of those deep balls, boy, his receivers absolutely let him down on a couple as well. So
no question.
It went both ways. Do you think there is any thought inside the building that we are so stacked at tight end, we don't need more wide receivers? The tight ends haven't historically been targeted excessively, but maybe this is the year. No, I think that they know they need some help at wide receiver. I don't see that being flipped.
I feel like tight end gets more talk, and this is not this staff. This is not this tight end group. This is multiple staffs, going back years, a decade probably at Tennessee, where tight ends get a ton of talk. And could they produce more? Could they do more? Are they going to do more? They're going to get more targets or more yards, more touchdowns. And it feels like, it just kind of really never happened. Like they had, I guess, this last year might be an exception to that rule, because I think they performed or produced a little bit more than I thought going into it.
I mean, my counter to that is, like, if you're looking for a tight end in this offense to have 11 catches and 100 yards receiving in a game, that's not going to happen. But Miles Kitselman and Jacob Warren and it's been a year, guys. I'm already losing my mind. The Miles, what was the other? Castles. There we go. They combined for 9 touchdowns in 23. That's pretty good. Miles Kitselman last year had I want to say 5 touchdowns, like combined. I know he rushed for 1. They do a good job of utilizing those guys, in my opinion. It's just you're not going to have the 100-yard games, and they're not going to be leading the team in receptions, like I think a lot of people are kind of asking, with this question.
Well, maybe I just got burned by the Woody Quinn experiment in my formative years.
Yeah, I mean, this offense is all about spreading people out. It's all about going sideline to sideline. And I know they condensed it down with some 2 tight end sets and played more of that this past year because they weren't where they needed to be at receiver. They're not sitting there in the offseason going, hey, we don't have to be as good at receiver as we were in 22 or 21. Let's just go heavier tight end and suddenly play 2 and 3 tight ends on the field all the time. That's just not what the crux of this offense is. You need an effective tight end, but you got to be better at the wide receiver position than they were this past year.
For sure. This is a fun one that I think we can all, get in a matter of 1 second. Vol says, Brent, what is more likely? Volquest releases video highlights of you golfing with Austin or Austin farming with you. I mean, you like to golf, right? I mean, it's definitely golfing with Austin, because Austin would never be out there with you on the farm.
First of all, Austin, they go strawberry picking with the family. They do all kinds of fun things like that. For him to come farm with me, he has to be invited to come out and farm with me. And I'm not sure we're allowing Peter Millar work clothes for your farming deal. So I'm not sure that the invite's there. I have played golf with Austin multiple times. I have a no video rule. You're not allowed to video my golf swing. So neither one of those are going to happen, is the bottom line.
Does Peter Millar make overalls?
It's right. You got Carhartt or Peter Millar coveralls. Which one do you want to go with?
If they make one, he's got them.
Peter Millar makes tennis shoes because Austin Price has Peter Millar tennis shoes.
There you go.
In case you were wondering. Fun fact. DolittleVol, Vegas set the over-under on wins for next season at 9.5. If you had to make a bet today, you going over or under? I made this the FanDuel post of the week. I think it was last week, and it's kind of interesting looking at some other SEC totals and all that. Where Tennessee is there at 9.5. Quarterback's got to take a step. You got questions about the offensive line. I recognize that, but it's all about those games on the road. We've talked about them, Grant. What do you do at Florida at the end of the season? What do you do in Tuscaloosa? I understand Georgia is early in the year, but those 2 games on the road really, playing the fact that Tennessee's going to be 10 wins or, 9 wins or 8 wins. So how would you answer this question right now?
I would answer by saying those 3 games. Are you going to beat Georgia at home, or are you going to win in Tuscaloosa, or are you going to win in Gainesville? Because you got to do one of the 3, right, to finish 10-2. If you take care of business against Syracuse in the opener, I would lean towards over. I think Tennessee's hard to beat at home. I think they're progressing. I think Georgia, I don't know. At some point, they're going to beat Georgia. Maybe it's this year, this coming year. I don't know. We've seen them I didn't really think they'd beat Alabama in 2022. I didn't know what they'd do against Bama at home in 2024. So I think they could beat Georgia at home in 2025. I just don't know what Gainesville looks like in November. And I guess Tuscaloosa is a little bit more – Alabama's looking a little bit more human than they have in a while. But we'll see how that changes in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. You
learned your lesson, right? Because you said 9-3 last August, and so now you're saying 10 here.
I mean, they lost 3 games. Spot the lie.
I can't. When you put it that way, I can't. I literally can't. Athrun, who would you say will be a sneaky good football player on this team next year? Not a starter, but someone who plays and makes some good plays in each game.
Farouk, if he doesn't start. I would go there. I'm not sure he's going to start, so I would probably start there with Idris Farouk. It better be a receiver. There better be some non-name receiver emerge. Maybe he becomes a name guy as the season progresses. But I would say that I think Deshaun Bishop's better than people want to give him credit for. So there's 3 names for you.
I would say I don't know who starts at running back, but I would say it needs to be one of the running backs, just like it needs to be one of the wide receivers.
Yeah, if Lewis starts, it should be Bishop or Thomas. If Bishop starts, it should be Thomas or one of those combinations.
Agreed.
Will we see any of the freshmen play at tight end this year with Miles Kutzman and Ethan Davis? I think the question, Brent, is where's Cole Harrison?
Exactly.
Who I think, talk about sneaky football players kind of under the radar, I think they like him a lot. Can he step up and be that third tight end, allowing Tennessee to go 12 personnel? Or will a Brame or Van Dorselaer pass him? I think Cole Harrison is someone to pay attention to in this conversation.
I agree 100%.
How many carries would you say Star Thomas gets this season?
No clue. No idea.
A third? I don't know. It feels like will they go back to splitting it a little bit more evenly now that they don't have a Jalen Wright and a dominant starter, a Dylan Sampson, a Jalen Wright, et cetera.
Shoot, Jalen Wright only had, 110 carries, I think, in his season. He should have got the ball more.
Well, I mean, listen, in year 1, Darrell Sims has been a 2-back guy, and Jerry Mack was a 3-back guy when he was here. So do they become a 3-back team, or are they a 2-back team, kind of in terms of the mainstay of what they are? That's we'll see.
Do you think Satterwhite is gone if Pendleton truly is our center this year?
I mean, I don't have any idea. I don't know where Satterwhite. I don't know what he thinks. I don't know where Pendleton's going to play. I mean, I'm not going to cast anything on anybody's mental approach with spring practice 3 weeks away right now. So I have no clue.
Got a couple more here. This one could be an entire show in the offseason. It's the old radio topic, but Zjsvols wants to know your Mount Rushmore of Tennessee Athletics. Have you guys given this any thought?
I mean, I gave it some thought after I read it on the rundown. Are you talking coaches or players or both?
I mean, this conversation.
All sports?
Everything, yeah.
I mean, players.
Which makes it so tough.
Players, I think you're talking Peyton Manning, Bernard King, Todd Helton, and then fill in the blank on the fourth. I don't know.
Reggie White?
I mean, I was trying to do like one representative from, I don't know. It's just incredibly tough to try to narrow that down.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I think Peyton's got to be on there regardless. Johnny Majors, from his time as a player and a coach. I mean, Todd Helton's a great one. You want to, I mean, again, there's only 4 slots. So I think, to your point, you could do players and then another one for coaches. It's right, wrong, and different. You're leaving off players that deserve to be on there. Candace Parker, women's basketball.
Yeah, Shamiqua Holtzclaw. I mean, if you're doing one per sport, do you do Helton, Bernard King, Peyton Manning, Shamiqua Holtzclaw? In kind of your 4 major sports. Is that a way that you go? I don't know. I mean, I think it's an impossible question. It's fun to debate, but I mean, we could debate that till spring practice starts.
It's a great question to make a lot of people angry.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Double nickels on the dime. Grant, how much is a Stanley Buck to Schrute? What is that? No, a Stanley Nickels to Schrute Bucks?
The same ratio as leprechauns to unicorns.
Is there an active college basketball head coach that you would trade Barnes for right now? If so, what does that look like? This is not meant to be wishful thinking or retirement speculation, just hypothetical. Curious about your opinions.
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I mean, it just depends on
it is.
It just depends on what kind of style of basketball you want. I mean, who's who's turning down Dan Hurley if he wants to come coach your basketball team? Like, obviously, the guy's won back-to-back national championships.
And he lets the refs know that he's the best there ever is, right?
Yeah, he's the best coach in the country. He can tell you himself. He tells refs that himself. I mean, I'm sure Tennessee fans, there's a big portion of Tennessee fans that are tired of defensive basketball and just trying to hold other teams under whatever points you can score any given night. So offensive-minded, I mean, Nate Oates just took Alabama to a Final Four and scores 100 points a game, it feels like, every single night. I mean, that's exciting brand of basketball to watch. They also give up 80, 85, whatever it is, defensively, because they're more offensive-focused, just like Tennessee's more defensive-focused. I mean, there's a ton of really good basketball coaches out there. It just depends on what kind of style you're looking for, what kind of product you want to watch on the floor. But, I mean, Hurley, the way he has won, it's one thing to win back-to-back national championships, which is crazy. It's another thing to do it in such a dominant fashion in March when games just – you're not traditionally winning by 15 to 20 points every single March NCAA tournament game, March Madness. It's crazy for a reason, the way they've dominated. I mean, of course, you would take that kind of domination anytime you could get it.
Pine wants to know, what would the Tennessee's best defensive infield and what position would everyone be playing? Now, what would be the best offensive infield lineup and position? Okay, so if we were doing the best Gold Glove defensive option infield for Tennessee, I don't think anybody, there's like 5 guys in contention. I don't think anybody is separating themselves defensively at first base right now. So I would move Fisher to first base, okay? Second base, Keelan. Shortstop, second base, Keelan. If we're doing straight defense, second base, Keelan. Shortstop, Ariel. And then third base, probably Dean. Maybe Manny Marin. If we're doing offensive, okay, the best offensive options, Alberto Osuna, if eligible, at first. Keelan at second. Dean at short. And probably, Fisher. Yeah, Fisher at third. Yeah, that's easy. Fisher at third. And then Cannon Peebles, both of those teams behind the dish. Andrew wants to know, what is the best flavor Pop-Tart?
I cannot believe you waited 47 minutes to get to the most important question in this podcast.
Even the best for almost last.
Okay, there's 2 things that have to happen here. One, you need to understand, if it's not a Kellogg's brand, forget it. The first person that shows up with a Toastums to try to pawn that off as a Pop-Tart needs to be done. I'm not a name brand guy, but when Pop-Tarts, there's a name brand and then there's nothing else. Okay, so we got to get that out of the way. Secondly, Grant, when you're going through your Pop-Tart flavoring, you have to go toasted versus non-toasted because it changes your flavor profile. Okay, that's where it's at in Pop-Tarts. So the chocolate fudge is good toasted. It's not good untoasted. Brown sugar and cinnamon is a great Pop-Tart untoasted. It's fine toasted, but it's a really good Pop-Tart untoasted. So there's a couple deciding factors there that determine where your flavor profile is on your Pop-Tarts, aside from the fact that it has to be a Kellogg, Grant Ramey.
Okay, I had no idea that Brent Hubbs was so well-versed in the Pop-Tart world.
I don't eat cold cereal. I don't eat oatmeal. So my childhood growing up was Pop-Tarts. They're still my childhood today.
You just lost me on cold cereal, so I might get fired for what I'm about to say. I didn't even know there was an off-brand Pop-Tart. That's a whole different discussion for a different podcast. Like, I think there are name brand people and they marry off-brand people. Right? I think that's the case at my house. I've married an off-brand person. I'm a name brand person.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Strawberry Pop-Tart. And what I'm about to say next, I've admitted publicly and been made fun of at every turn.
You're going to go unfrosted?
Who knows? No, I'm not a psycho. What's wrong with you? I don't buy the thin Oreos either. I buy the double.
I'm glad we can all agree on that. Like,
but I don't.
Anybody who gets unfrosted in this conversation does not deserve to be having a seat at the table.
Forget toasting the Pop-Tart. Just pop it in the microwave. 8 seconds. Get you a glass of milk. You're out the door.
Man, you got to eat that Pop-Tart in a hurry.
No,
once that thing starts to cool
it's too
down,
hot. You got to let it cool for a second.
Once it starts to cool down, man, it is like chewy. It's not very good. It's got to go toaster.
Listen, I'm not trying to brag here, but I'm the only one on this podcast that's, did a Pop-Tart eating, tasting challenge type situation in the old RIP press box at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. I don't eat Pop-Tarts often. They're good, but we don't get them when we go to the grocery store. Strawberry is always my favorite. From that experience, if I can remember correctly, because I haven't had a Pop-Tart since, cherry was really good.
Best toasted flavor.
Cherry was good. Cinnamon was low-key good. I had no expectation of cinnamon, and I remember walking away from I don't even know what happened in the baseball game, but the biggest takeaway in my 4 takes that night was cinnamon was like sneaky good. I thought it was pretty good. The s'mores were not good, too rich, way too much.
Any chocolate, s'mores, cinnamon, any of that, just get it out of here. Give me a strawberry Pop-Tart, and I'm good.
Yeah, strawberry and blueberry.
This year, y'all are going to have to take toasters just to hold on to them, keep warm for these March games, February games.
This is true.
Listen,
true. I will say this. The raspberry Pop-Tart is a good Pop-Tart, but it's not the old school raspberry. They changed the flavoring on that, so it's not as good as it used to be. And Kellogg's did away with the Dutch apple Pop-Tart, which was a fantastic Pop-Tart of my childhood. The apple they have now is not the Dutch apple. It's not the same Pop-Tart. They really lost their flavor profile when they changed that one.
We have so much right now, it's going to be a little cold, for this year, but we're going to manage. We have so much room in our media press box area this year. We can bring an oven up there. I mean, we couldn't even move in the old. We can stretch your arms. We can do cartwheels. I mean, I'm in good shape, man. I like our setup this year.
Grant, can't you see the media? Like, the TV people have those beach wagons that they bring all their equipment in. The baseball media is going to come in like an air fryer, a toaster. Some snacks, and they're come pulling that wagon in for their 3-game series.
Coffee maker, TV on the roller thing that your teacher used to bring in.
And the best part about it is there's so much room where we can, go away from people we don't like. I mean, in the old press box, I had to sit right next to Mike Wilson and Ryan Shumpert. I mean, why on earth would I choose to sit by those guys? I can go to the complete other side, right?
You have so much room because you're just out in nature, right? Yeah. That's the new press box.
Well, we're enclosed, but yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Before we move on, I mean, we have all the time in the world here. Brent, how was your donut experience on the way back from Nashville?
Fantastic. It was fantastic. It never disappoints. The heart jelly donut was unbelievably fresh. I could have had like 6 of those. I picked a jelly donut that was heart shaped for Valentine's. I had the chocolate glaze and I had the blueberry. All 3 were good. I could have gone with 3 of the jelly donuts and been plenty happy with what was going on there.
Well, hold up. From where?
From the Dunkin' Donuts to go at the Gordonville Carthage exit in the pilot.
Hubber.
Which again, self-checkout. Okay, so you don't even have to deal with anybody. You go in, you open the little glass door for the kiosk, you grab your tissue paper, you grab your donuts, put it in a bag, and you go check out. 3 donuts and an orange juice, and I rode right back from Nashville in time for the second half of Tennessee and Kentucky.
You're talking about donuts from a gas station?
They're Dunkin' Donuts. They're the best.
That's worse. That makes it worse.
They're the freshest Dunkin' Donuts on the planet, Grant.
I have a list on my phone. I've been following Tennessee basketball around for 10 years. I have a list of my phone of all the best donuts I can find on the road, and I can assure you that none of them are Dunkin' or Krispy Kreme. None of them came from a gas station. I can tell you that, from a Dunkin' box.
I can assure you this. I have not, other than going with my family to the airport to go see my son at graduation, I've not driven to Nashville in the last 5 to 7 years without stopping at that pilot at the Carthage Gordonville exit for donuts, regardless of time of day, Grant. It doesn't matter. Morning coming home from a Vanderbilt late night game, late night coming home from a Vanderbilt game, a publisher's conference, a speaking engagement, it does not matter. That is a staple stop. Cap off the gas tank, 3 donuts and orange juice, and we're going to sugar high ourselves off the plateau.
Stop in Cookeville. There's a place in Cookeville called Ralph's, and it's like stepping into a time capsule. You just go there. There's a styrofoam cup for coffee. It's like 25 cents. There's any donut you can imagine. There is stuff that's as big as a hubcap if you want that. Like, just stop there. Let's work on better habits on the road.
I like my habits. It's a pit stop. I'm in and out in a hurry, and I've got 3 fresh quality donuts to go down the road with.
Ralph needs your business. Small business.
Like Ralph.
Ralph's trying to put food on the table.
When I have a bunch of free time, I'll go see Ralph. Is Ralph open at 9:00 at night? Is he open 24 hours?
If he hears Brent Hubbs wants to stop by, he'll probably open the shop.
I've always had a rule: don't eat food from a gas station until I moved out this way, where I've stopped at the local Weigel's several times. I'm on the road, need to stop, get a quick bite. Weigel's will take care of you. So
Andrew Himmelman has has thrown a grenade into the last 2 podcasts I've been on, Mailbag, just by asking what's your favorite candy and what's the best Pop-Tart flavor.
I think this has been one of the best podcasts we've had. We've just gone off the rails a little bit. We
By
do have
the
one
way,
more.
I will say this for Andrew, and I know we got to go. I will say this for Andrew. After the candy one, my daughter and I went to Target or Walmart or something where she had to get something, and I walked out with a bag of Starburst simply because of the post he made about candy on the podcast. He suckered me into buying a bag of Starburst to eat.
I almost did the same thing because I thought of the candy that I should have answered with, those Ghirardelli chocolate squares that have like the caramel in them. I could eat like the entire bag of those in one sitting. Like those make me go to a dark place.
And you had a discipline not to buy, and I had a discipline to buy a full bag of Starburst Big Reds, and I ate every one of them.
That's why you're the boss and I'm the employee.
That's
gonna
why
say,
I'm not going to live very long.
None of those are left, right? The
Oh
bag's
no,
gone?
they're gone. They've been gone. Are you kidding me? We rolled right through those puppies.
Can you buy a bag that's just red or just?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, they
what
have
I
four
get.
different types of red Starburst in there. They have a tropical punch, cherry, strawberry, and I don't know if it's cotton candy or whatever the other light pink one is. But yeah, there's 4.
We made the mistake of taking our kids in the M&M store in Times Square in July, and you can pick your own M&Ms, and you get to the cashier, and it's like the $3 bag that you buy at the gas station is all of a sudden $23 because you've picked which M&Ms you want.
Pick your flavors.
And I could walk 2 rooms away from me right now and pick out that bag of M&Ms that is maybe half eaten.
Of course. Welcome to parenting, right, Grant? That's
Right.
what Garrett's going to learn.
But
Also-
we broke something on the way out, so I felt like we earned our money back.
That M&M store in Times Square has one bathroom, so we had to stop. She had to use the restroom when we were in this past summer, and you wait for about 30 minutes just to use the restroom in that store. Last one, Zjsvols. Please explain revenue sharing and how it works, how it came about. Where does the money come from?
Money comes from the athletic department. It comes from the budget. That's why there's talent fees. That's why ticket prices are going up. That's why athletic departments are trying to cut expenses on non-essential items if you can. Whether that's pregame meals for the media or whatever the case may be. They're trying to, be more frugal with their money in some of those things that don't directly affect student athletes. So that's where it comes from. How it works remains to be seen. Is that going to be something that is divided equally among all sports? Or is that going to be to where you can earmark it for the sports as you want to earmark it for? And all those things kind of remain to be seen as we work our way through revenue share, which is going to become a reality at some point in time.
Appreciate the questions as always. Hope you enjoy the conversation about Pop-Tarts and candy and gas stations and a little bit about Tennessee football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting every Thursday right here at Volquest.com. It's brought to you by our great friends who are thrilled with this episode. That's Exterior Home Solutions, 865-524-5888, online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. For Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Cain. A lot of conversation about a lot of these topics over in the General's Quarters right now. Go ahead and check us out. If you're listening to this show or watching and you're not a member of VolQuest.com, just the tip of the iceberg. A lot going on right now, Brent. Baseball season starting. Recruiting never stops. Basketball season heating up. Lady Vols as well. We got it all over at VolQuest.com.
Yep, no better time to be a part. So come be a part of the family. Come be a part of the conversation and get all the great content that's written, but also get involved in a lot of the discussions and stuff that's going on with all these sports right now. Not a better time than right now to check us out.
Appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.